chapter 11. I like it. I like it. Mark chapter 11. Now, we are in the middle of kind of a little series within a series, if you will. We've been going through the book of Mark, and this idea of Mark that we've been building over the last year is the life that broke death. That's the title of this series we've been working through. And right now, where we are is we're in the middle of this look at the sower and the seed. We looked at that 2 weeks ago. Sower and the seed. We talked about all the ground. We talked about the plowed up soil, the hard soil, the thorny soil. We looked at all those soils. And then last week we looked at this idea of being a servant. And as you look at this idea of being a servant, we said, really, when it comes to God's kingdom, it's servants all the way down. You start with the chief servant, who's Christ, who right before he dies, he girds himself with a towel, he gets down and he does the nastiest of nasty jobs. And he does that level of service in order to prove a point and to demonstrate to his disciples, this is how I want you to act. And so we've seen this idea of preparing the heart to hear the word. We looked at that. We said the sower sows the seed, but there's ways to prepare the heart to make it better. And then we looked at this idea of being a servant all the way around. But then we get here to Mark chapter 11, and I want you to notice what Jesus is starting to respond to. And in Mark chapter 11, again, he's corrected his disciples on a lot of things. They want to be leaders, they want to be rulers, they want the power, and he goes, that's not what this is all about. I'm not interested in, appointing more rulers. The Gentiles are going to exercise lordship over you. We're not going to be like the Gentiles. You're all going to be servants. And you're not even going to be servant leaders. You're just going to be servants. And if I give you authority, then awesome. But the idea is he's basically saying you are going out there to serve. You are going out there with a mission that I want you to accomplish. And you get here to chapter 11, and Jesus starts riding in. And I want you to see, again, how the people respond to Jesus. And then I want you to see what Jesus starts to say. It's quite staggering if you stop. So look at Mark chapter 11. All right, it says this, and when they came nigh unto Jerusalem, and Bethphage and Bethany, at the Mount of Olives, he sendeth forth two of his disciples. He said, go your way into the village over against you, and as soon as you are entered into it, you shall find a colt tied, whereupon never a man sat. Loose him and bring him. Okay, so Jesus has apparently prepared some things ahead of time. He sends them in, says, go get this colt, bring it out, and he's about to fulfill some prophecies. We talked about that a little while ago. Verse 3. If any man say to you, why do you need him? Say, the Lord hath need of him. Straightway he will send him thither. And they went on their way, and they found the colt tied at the door without the place where the two ways met, and they loose him. Okay, so just Jesus, he prepared ahead of time. There's a special animal he's got. Again, this is all fulfillment of prophecy. And he's just saying, go get it and bring it to me. Okay, verse 5. Certain of them that stood by said, why, what are you doing, loosing the colt? And Jesus said, and they said unto him, even as Jesus has commanded, and they let him go, and they brought the colt to Jesus, and cast their garments on him, and he sat on him. And many spread their garments in the way, and others cut down branches off the trees, and they strawed them in the way. And they went before him, and they followed, and they cried, Hosanna, blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the kingdom of his father David, that cometh in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. Okay, so Jesus has explained, we're here to serve. We're not here to be rulers. And now he's riding into Jerusalem, and there's this celebration of him as the new ruler. Hosanna, look at the king. The king has returned. Like, you've got all of this dramatic entry stuff. Verse 11, and Jesus entered into Jerusalem and into the temple, and when he had looked upon all these things. Okay, so I want you to notice, because a lot of the next section is going to be focused in on the temple. And I want you to almost see this as Jesus coming in to kind of do an inspection. All right, if you've ever run a business, and let's say you're a manager, and you're sitting there running the business as a manager, and you've been running it for a while, and then the owner shows up, sometimes you get a little nervous. You're like, ooh, have I been doing things the way the owner wants it done? Like, I know I'm the manager, so I'm here all the time, but am I really doing this the right way? And there's kind of that nervousness sometimes when the owner shows up, and he starts going, what's that over there? And you're like, yeah, that's my stash of, I know it's not supposed to be there, but I put it, Like, I don't know if you've ever been in that situation. I totally never have. Totally, never, ever. But there are times where, you get that nervousness where the boss man showed up, and, I used to have this when I worked at camp, and the board would show up, and they would start, like, inspecting vehicles. And I was like, no, let's never inspect my vehicle. Ever, ever, ever. But it was one of those things where you're like, oh, great, the board is going around and looking at everything. Or county would show up, and they would start inspecting the pool that I was managing, and you're like, oh, man, that means I'm in trouble. I, but again, let's say you didn't know who the owner was, and the owner shows up to your business and he starts looking around. And let's say you get a little uppity, and you start giving the owner a hard time. And you start, oh, what are you doing back here? You gotta get out of here. Okay, what do you think the owner's gonna do? It's probably not gonna end well for you. The owner has now showed up in his house to do a spot inspection to see how things are going. That's what's going on in this scenario. Jesus has ridden into town undercover. They don't realize this is God himself showing up to do a spot inspection of the temple and to see how things are going. This is about to end badly. In fact, everything that Jesus does from here to the end of this section is a condemnation of what they've been doing. It is their evaluation. He goes, okay, how do you guys think you're doing? Oh, we think we're doing great. Look at how beautiful this temple is. Look at how gorgeous. Look at all the gold. And he goes, okay. How do you think you've been carrying out the mission of the company? Oh, I think it's been great. Look at us. Like we exist. Oh, okay, good. How are things around the place? Oh, have you seen all the animals we're selling? Have you seen all the sacrifices we're making? This is splendid. Things are going really well. That's what just happened. Jesus walks into the temple, looks around, then all of this starts unraveling. Look what it says. It says, and Jesus entered into Jerusalem and into the temple, and when he looked around on all the things, now eventime was come. He went out with Bethany with the 12. Doesn't even say what he did. Doesn't even say what he thought. He just walks in, looks around, nighttime hits, and he goes, I'll be back. And this is where we get to the fig tree. Now, a few months ago, we covered this. But I want to cover this again, because look what happens. Back in that day, and even today, because biology still works, there were this time period where you would have the leaves on the tree, and there were these edible little nodes that would pop off, kind of like right near the leaves. And it would show a sign. Basically, it would be these edible little parts on the fig tree. That's what Jesus is looking for here. He's looking not for figs, because figs aren't supposed to grow yet, but there are these little edible bits that grow on the fig tree. And he's looking at that going, there should be something on this tree that is edible. There should be something, whether you want to call it a fruit, whether you want to call it a growth, whatever you want to call it, it's this edible little part, and I'm expecting to at least find some of those. And he walks up, and it specifically says, the time of figs was not come. He was not expecting to find full-fledged figs. He was just expecting to find these little edible bits. And I hope you can pick up on the metaphor of what he's doing here. When it came to the nation of Israel here, obviously the fullness of the fruit that they were supposed to bear was not yet. But there should have been some fruit. There should have been some evidence that God had been working in them for all of these ages. There should have been something. Metaphorically speaking, he's coming up to the nation of Israel and he's saying, I'm going to do a spot fruit inspection. Because I've left you running this place for so long, I should see something for all the work that I've done. And look what he does. It says, and on the morrow, so he went, inspects the temple, he leaves, he comes back. On the morrow, when he was come from Bethany, he was hungry, and seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves, so it was a sign that it should have had these little growths, having leaves, he came, if haply, or by chance, he might find anything thereon. And when he was come to it, he found nothing but leaves. And I want you to notice what the narrative is doing. Spot inspection of their religion. Come back, metaphorical inspection of their religion. And he goes, listen, you got a whole lot of leaves. You got all the evidence that this should be right. But look, he found nothing but leaves. Obviously, he didn't find figs because there were no figs yet. And it says, and Jesus says, no man eat fruit from thee forever. And his disciples heard it. So Jesus has just pronounced a judgment against the religious system of the Jews. He's just said, all this stuff you've been doing. Remember, he's criticized the Pharisees because they really, really liked to replace God's law with man's law. And that's what they've done. There was this whole rule called the Korban rule, where it said, and he literally talks about this in some of these scriptures, he calls it the Korban rule, and it meant gift. Because what would happen is there were times where you were commanded to take care of your family. You were commanded to take care of your parents. But what you could do is you could give all of your stuff kind of like a reverse mortgage to the temple. And now it's the temple's, but you could still use it. And so what they would do is they would kind of give it all to the temple. It's not mine anymore, so sorry, Mom and Dad, I can't use it to be a blessing to you. It's a gift. And so what Jesus did is Jesus came and he called out the Pharisees and said, Pharisees, you nullified that whole law with this loophole that says, I've given it to the temple. I can't touch it. I mean, I can use it. I just can't touch it, though, because it's the temple's korban. And he goes, how is that in the spirit of the law? How is that right at all? And those were the types of things that were happening, where they were really, really concerned, like we talked about last week, with, okay, we need to tithe of these specific plants and animals. And the Pharisees would they would go above and beyond the call of duty. And they would go above and beyond. And he goes, good, you guys are tithing of the mint and the cumin and all. Good job, guys. But you've neglected the weightier matters of the law. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to repeatedly show them, you're not carrying on what I've told you to do. I left you here for a purpose. I gave you a job. I told you exactly how you're supposed to do this. And you keep finding all the loopholes and all the twists, and you keep missing the point. And so what he does is he comes up and he says, I came for a spot inspection of the temple. Not how I like it. Okay, I'm going to go away. I'm going to come back the next day, and I'm going to make a metaphor using this fig tree. Because this fig tree has everything that shows signs that it should have some fruit to it. But it doesn't. So I'm going to curse this fig tree. And a lot of people who don't understand what he's doing here, they're like, Jesus was just hangry. I mean, he was just really, really hungry. He was just really, really irritated, and he just really wanted fruit, and he just didn't realize it wasn't the time for. That's not the point. He's making an illustration. This is a living parable he's about to do right here. He says, Israel, you're the fig tree. Israel, you have everything you need to be producing at least the little nubbins of fruit. You might not have the full fig yet because the Messiah hasn't come, but you got the little nubbins. But you don't even have those. You're just a bunch of leaves. You look real pretty. You look really figgy on the outside. But I can't tell what's in you because you have absolutely no fruit. I'm drying you up. I'm drying you up. You're done. And so he curses the fig tree. Now I want you to notice, visit to the temple, cursing of the fig tree, and then where does he go right afterward? He walks right up into the temple, and look what happened. There's a purpose. There's a reason, this is arranged this way. It's basically sandwiching these little ideas, and you're supposed to kind of read this as a package. And look at verse 15, and he says, and he comes to Jerusalem, and Jesus went into the temple again. And he goes, I'm tired of this place being like this. And he cast out them that sold and bought in the temple. He overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seat of them that sold doves. And he would not that any should suffer any that could carry a vessel through the temple. And he said this, is it not written, my house shall be called of all nations a house of prayer? You have made it a den of thieves. And so the idea was they could sell some of their animal. So nobody wants to travel several hundred miles on foot with a cow. All right? So there might be times where you would say, okay, I'm going to sell my animal here, get the money, and I'm going to go up to the temple, and I'm going to buy the animal that I need to sacrifice. And so I don't want to carry a little cage with a dove in it all the way from my home all the way to the temple so I can sacrifice it. I'll just sell it here, and then I'll buy a dove. Take a dove, leave a dove. You're just a little buy a dove store right there in the courtyard of the temple. Okay, we know how businesses work. Okay, we were at the park yesterday, and it's like, how much for that bottle of water? And you're like, that is a lot of money. That's ridiculous. And you know why they do that? Because you have no choice. Because you have no choice. We are going to make a lot of money off of you because you're trapped here with us and you don't want to drive out to Walmart. So, congratulations. You will pay whatever we want you to pay. That's what's happening right here in the courtyard. They've got all these animals for sale. And they've sold their animals and they're coming up, and now the people in the temple are like, ooh, I like this. We got a corner on the market. Jesus is looking at us going, okay, this isn't like, hey, we bought a Bible for, $25 and we're selling a Bible for $25 because we want you to, this is, we bought a Bible for $25 and this is the only place in this area you can get it, so we're going to mark it up to 75. That's what's going on here. They're fleecing the flock, as it will. They're making merchandise of these people. Now, what did Jesus just finish explaining in the previous chapter? You are to be servants. You are not to be lords. You are not to be, you are to be providing, showing fruit. Mark 4 was that whole parable on the soils and the growth and the fruit that we should see. And all of these things, he's basically saying, as a nation who's been so blessed by God, you should be willing to take the hit. You should be willing to sacrifice. You should be willing to do all of these things to see people come to a relationship with me. But what are you doing? When these people walk into the temple, guess what? They have to pay your prices to buy your animal so they can sacrifice to me. What do you think that does? What do you think that does to a worshipful spirit when you walk into a church and you're taken advantage of the moment you walk through the door? And it's taken on different forms through the years, even in the church. But again, this is not foreign to the church itself. And this is what happens, is Jesus looks at this and he goes, all right, I came for an inspection last night. I was not pleased. I walked up, and metaphorically speaking, you're a fig tree with no fruit. So why would I continue taking care of you as a fig tree? He's about to make the same case later on with a vineyard, where he talks about a vineyard that was perfect and maintained and walled and gardened with a vine vat, everything you would need to do the business. And he's about to show that as well. He's making a point over and over to say, Israel, you're in big trouble because you don't have fruit. You don't have the fruit that you need. So he's inspected. He's made a metaphorical case. And then he walks in and he says, I'm taking control of my house again. And he kicks all these money changers out. He knocks over the tables. This is not him saying that our solution to every problem in the church is to start throwing tables and hands. All right? That's not what this point is. He's saying you're taking advantage of people, and I'm about to come to their defense, and I will drive you out of my house. And if you will not stay out of my house, then I will abandon this house altogether, and this house will get torn to the ground. That's what he's saying. So Jesus is basically saying, you have a chance for me to come back with this house. But I know you're not going to take it. So as we continue this narrative, I want to show you, he's about to say, I would rather tear this house down than let it continue being used the way it is. That's how serious Jesus is about this. He says, your heart's not right. You're not producing fruit. There's nothing of me in you. So I'm leaving. And look what happens. He comes and he overthrows the money changers and the seat of them that sold doves. He would not suffer that any man should carry any vessel through the temple. He just goes crazy on these guys, putting them back in their place. It's his house. And look what he says. And he taught and he said unto them, is it not written, my house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer? But you've made it a den of thieves. And the scribes and the chief priests heard of it, and they sought how they might destroy him. Again, managing the business, running things as he sees fit, given a training manual and an instruction manual from the boss man. He follows it for a little while and then decides, you know what? I'm smarter than the boss. I'm going to do things my own way. That is where Israel finds itself right here. And they're looking at this manual going, we're going to do it our way. And Jesus comes in and goes, I don't know if you realize this, but I'm the owner. And this is my house. And I set it aside to be used for a specific reason. And the manager goes, I don't care. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you think you have to say in this matter at all. And Jesus is about to give the parable of this wine press, because what happens is the Jewish leaders have been loaned this wine press. They've been loaned this vineyard. And the owner keeps wanting some of the profits. And so he keeps sending prophets, ironically enough, same word. But he keeps sending these prophets to say, hey, I want something of what is mine. And they go, nah. And they beat up the messenger, and they kill some messengers. And then he finally sends his own son, and he says, I have a message for you. I expect something of what is mine. And Jesus gives this parable and says, they take the son, they beat him, they kill him, and they chuck him out of the vineyard. And he goes, what do you think the owner of that vineyard's going to do when he has his way with those people? This is Jesus saying that nicely. This is the owner coming back and leaning over the desk and going, you have one chance, if you want to continue to manage my store, to do it my way. Well, I don't recognize your authority as owner. Okay. And I want you to see where it goes, because the scribes and the chief priests, they fight back. They go, how dare you? We're going to kill you. We're going to take you out because you dare to challenge what we're doing. And it says, and when the evening was come, so another day is now past, he went out of the city. And in the morning they passed by, and the fig tree was dried up from its roots. So again, this is all a continuing story. Inspection of the temple. It's not how he likes it. He walks out and curses the fig tree. He goes into the temple again. He cleans it. He gives them a warning, says this is the purpose of the temple. And they go, who are you? So he goes out, and the next morning he's about to go back in, and guess what? That fig tree's dried up and a dead husk. So now it doesn't even have leaves. Now it's just dead. It's dead. And look what it says. And Peter, calling to remembrance what happened the day before, said to him, Master, behold, the fig tree which thou cursest is withered away. Yes, you got it. Now I want you to notice this, because again, this fig tree is sandwiched on either side of a visit to the temple. Temple, fig tree, temple, fig tree. And he's trying to say, yes, the evidence of the rot in this religion is not as quickly showing up, but just as clearly as the fig tree died out and dried up and is gone. I want you to understand what we're about to get into. I want you to understand that the moment I die and the moment that this tabernacle curtain is ripped in twain, I want you to notice that all these things that are happening is basically me drying up this, what has become a false religion. I'm drying up their power. I'm destroying them from the inside out. And look where he goes, because I want you to notice a lot of times we misuse this verse that's coming up. But I want you to notice how it's sandwiched in the middle of this whole dialogue. Goes into the temple, curses the fig tree, goes into the temple, sees the fig tree again. If you were writing that narrative, where would be the next place he goes? The temple. So you've got this temple, fig, temple pattern. Look where he goes next. And I want you to notice how some people misuse this verse. Verse 22. And Jesus answering them said to this, and this is the key of the whole message, have faith in God. That's the problem of all of this. That's the problem of all of this stuff that we've been talking about. These people did not put their faith in God. Simply put, if you put your faith in God, there should be a fear of God that shows up. If you put your faith in God, then there should be a service to God that shows up. If you put your faith in God, then there should be something that changes in you. Just simply put, There should be a difference in your life if you truly have faith in God. Simply put, that is why after all of this narrative, after all of this explanation, he lands with a simple, pithy little statement that says, the solution to all of this is to have faith in God. If you want to take it in a different way, the just shall live by his faith. What you believe is what you do. Okay? I don't know how many other ways I can say it, but that's what he's trying to say. Have faith in God. And what he's doing is he's going to talk to the disciples, and he's going to say, disciples, things are about to get really rough for you. And the source of a lot of the roughness that you are about to face for the next decade is going to come from these people I just cursed. I just want you to know that. Most of the early converts are going to be Jewish, and most of the early persecutors are going to be Jewish. That's what's going to happen. You're going to have a massive wave of Jewish converts who realized we've been on the wrong track, we need to repent, and we need to turn to our Messiah. And that's why thousands are going to get saved in one fell swoop. And then you're going to get another group that goes, ooh, this isn't going to go well for us. We need to get rid of these guys. And Paul is going to be one of those guys who goes out, a Pharisee of the Pharisees, a guy who represents this system and goes, we're going to tear it down if we have to go house to house to do it. And I want you to notice, because that's what Jesus is hinting at in this next line. He's saying, you are about to suffer immensely for me, but have faith in God and stick with the stuff. And look where he goes next. He goes, for verily, whosoever shall say to this mountain. Now think about it. Where is he standing? Near the temple. What is the temple called? The Temple Mount. He's standing. He's gone into the temple. He's come out. He's gone by the fig tree and then to the temple. He's come out. He goes by the fig tree again. Where is he going? Back and forth to the temple. So most likely, when he says this mountain, he's looking at the Temple Mount going, this system that's about to persecute you greatly is about to get torn down, but you have to live by faith. You have to continue in the faith. You don't beat this one by military arms. You don't beat this one by, we've got to do some careful assassination of the right Pharisaical leaders, and that'll... No. He goes, you have faith in me, you do the work of the ministry, and this will fall down. And quite literally, it did. It got torn brick from brick. And look what he says. He says, you will say, whosoever will say to this mountain, be thou removed and cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, and shall believe that these things will come to pass, which he had said, he shall have whatever he saith. This will not stand against the faith in God. Therefore I say unto you, whatever things you desire when you pray, you shall receive them, you shall have them. And when you stand praying, because again, it's in the theme of persecution and the struggles that they're about to face, and an encouragement to stick with the stuff, this is why he looks at them and he says, when you stand praying, what do you need to do? Forgive. If you notice, right after this, when the disciples are being persecuted, what do? They were suffering the spoiling of their goods. They were following Christ's example of being sheep to the slaughter. They just went with it and they got killed left, right, and center. And there is a level of forgiveness that going through the ringer and surviving and then turning around to the person who did it to you and forgiving them. It just breaks things. That's not the way the world's supposed to work. You're not supposed to forgive the person who hurt you. At least not a way a world works. And Jesus is saying, you guys need to be so focused on God, you need to be so focused in your faith on Christ, that even though these people are hunting and killing you and coming after you, you trust the power of God and you forgive, because souls are eternal and all of this other stuff doesn't matter. All the gold of that temple, it's going to melt down and it's going to be nothing. All the wealth they steal from you, nobody's going to be able to find that in a few years. It doesn't matter. He's trying to get them to have the right attitude about eternity. And if I, by forgiving, can see the person who persecuted me come to Christ, it's worth forgiving, but it's not easy, and it's not normal, and it's not something that comes out of my human nature. Hence, have faith in God that he will take care of it. But you see how this whole paradigm, this whole narrative just turns our thinking on its head. We look at something great and powerful, we look at a mountaintop temple, and we go, there's no fighting against that. There's nothing I can do against that level of power. And Christ goes, yeah, of course. Of course there isn't. So have faith in God. And have the faith that through your forgiveness and through living for me and living by faith, that you will see that mountain get removed. And that is what will happen in 70 AD. Quite literally, this Temple Mount will be removed. And look what he says. He says, when you stand praying, forgive. And if you have aught against any, boy, that touches close to home. I mean, that touches real close to home. I mean, if you were like, okay, if I'm sitting here in my pew, who would be the person I would most not want to see walk in and sit next to me in the pew? Who would be the person? I don't want to start that list. I don't want to think about that. But he says, if you have aught against any. I mean, we're all hurt. We've all suffered. We've all been wronged. But are you holding it against that person? Or is there forgiveness that you can say, you know what? As Christ forgave me, I can forgive you. It doesn't mean I let you off the hook. It doesn't mean, I don't hold you accountable. But there's no grudge between us. That's a hard command to follow. But it can only be done through having faith in God. It can only be done by having his eternal perspective. It can only be done by working according to his mission statement. And look what he says. He says, forgive. And if you have aught against any, that your Father in heaven also may forgive you your trespasses. But if you do not forgive, neither will your Father which is in heaven forgive your trespasses. I mean, there's a level of him going, don't talk to me until you go make that right. That's a heavy one. Now, the sins are forgiven. But the Bible says, if I regard iniquity in my heart, if I'm holding this iniquity up to the level of God, and I'm like, nope, I'm going to hold on to that. He goes, if I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear it. And so I want us to see this, because what he's doing is he says, hey, so this isn't just a condemnation of Israel. This is a gut check for us. Because we might have all the leaves. We might have all the flourishing beauty of a fig tree that looks like it should have something of fruit. And if Christ walked up to us right now and he says, all right, fruit inspection time. Okay, I know you don't have figs. I know you're not quite at that stage yet. I get it. That's okay. But do you have anything? You got anything on here? And he starts rifling around your leaves. No, none on that branch. Rifling these. Nothing on that branch. The Bible says that when Christ returns, will he find faith on the earth? It's a condemnation, because there are churches who look all good and beautiful on the outside. But when you start rifling around in the leaves, you go, oh, sure, I mean, you got all the programs, you got all the beauty, you got all the looks, but there's nothing here. Well, let's dry it up. Let's pull this one out. And so the challenge for us is not just to point at this and go, ha ha, Israel, look what he did to you. No, in fact, as you read Romans, it says, be careful, we who are in the church, that we don't boast against the branches. Because if he ripped the natural branches off and grafted us in, guess what he might do to the grafted on branches? Make sure you're producing fruit. Because a tree that has no fruit, no point of it. And what's the solution to all this? So as we come to our conclusion, a lot of history, a lot of theological explanation, I get it. I want to leave you with just a simple question. Do you have faith in God? And I don't mean just of course I believe it. But when you go out in your day-to-day walk, do you ask him for the strength to carry on? When it comes to someone who's wronged you and you run into that person, do you have the strength to be able to go, I forgive you? You might not say it audibly, but in your heart. And I'm telling you, personal confession time. There have been people who wronged me that I genuinely thought I forgave. I genuinely did. In my head, I said, you know what? I'm fine with you. But then I see them. They show up. And the bottom of your gut drops out and you go, you wronged me and I forgave you. Why do I feel so angry right now? And honestly, can I tell you what the biggest cure for that is? I walk over, I talk to him, and I give him a hug. And sometimes I've got to see them 3 or 4 times before that resentment goes away. That's happened multiple times. That's happened multiple times where I deeply resented someone for something they did. And it took me about 3 times where I finally went, you know what? I'm good with you. But it was a choice I had to make to go to that person. And it doesn't mean we're buddy-buddy. Doesn't mean we text. Doesn't mean I'm inviting them over to my house. That's not what forgiveness means. But if they needed help, if they needed prayer, I wouldn't leave their text on read and go, yeah, whatever. I would respond. And that's where he says, if you find that you have aught against any, and sometimes you don't know until you see them. And that's where he says, just examine your heart. Do you have faith in God enough that he'll take care of that problem? Because it's not between you and them. And so I challenge you this morning. Do you have faith in God? And have you forgiven those who wronged you? And that is where you start seeing fruit. Because it's very, very hard to go around this world angry and bitter if you're not angry and bitter against the ones who hurt you the most. And so I challenge you today as we close in prayer. How's your faith? And how's your forgiveness? Let's close. As we close, I'm going to ask Happy just to play 562, just as I am. God knows our state. God knows we are but flesh and dust. He understands the struggle. I'm going to challenge you this morning. If